Star, the official newspaper of the Borough of Belmar, and the Asbury Park Press on December 19, 2018. A notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building.
Thank you, April. If everybody can join me in saluting the flag of our great nation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Everybody will remain standing for a moment of silence for our troops, their families, and all our first responders. Thank you. Everybody's noticed all the police officers in the room. They're here to protect me since the last meeting. So thank you, guys. Now, we have a big announcement to make, and we have our chief who's going to be retiring at the end of the year, and we're really going to miss him. I worked with my chief for most of my whole career. He's done a great job for us. He's really had his heart in Belmar, and we're really hating to see him go. So all the officers are coming here to congratulate him on his retirement, and we wish him all the best. Drew, you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor. And actually, it was our whole career.
It was.
As some of you already know, I plan to retire from the Belmar Police Department, effective December 31st. I've had the privilege to serve my entire 27 years in law enforcement within the borough of Belmar after being hired in 1993 as patrolman. This opportunity has turned out to be a lifelong career in law enforcement. I told my officers last week, look around and enjoy it, because 25 years was like that. Over the years, I've had served with many officers in Belmar. However, I can say without a doubt that this group of men and women who are present here today are arguably the best officers that anybody can ask for, period. I recognize the long-term results for a successful police department are created by those who are doing the work, not just the one person who has the honor and privilege of being in charge. I want to say thanks to all my officers. It made my job easier. Continue to work with integrity, professionalism they possess each day. It has been an honor and pleasure to work with the members of this council, past and present, the residents, the schools, and the business owners of this town. For many of you have known, I have worked with Mayor Walsford, the Administrator Kirschenbaum, and Director Mike Campbell for my whole career. I am truly appreciative for everyone and wish continued success in the future. The opportunity that Belmar has presented me in 1993 turned out to be a successful, rewarding career in law enforcement. Something that is truly amazing, and for this I thank you. I want to thank Captain Tina Scott, Detective Captain Thomas Cox, Detective Lieutenant Michael Campbell, my assistant Kim Van Pelt, and the rest of the Belmar police officers for their support over the years. I wish nothing but the best for you in the future. No other department can measure up to these officers who stand before you. Their skills, their competence, and their compassion are truly unmatched. And for this I am proud. Lastly, I want to thank my wife Lisa and my 3 sons, Andrew, Christopher, and Joshua, for their support and patience over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
you, Mayor. Like the chief said, it was an honor and a privilege to work with Chief Heisman since 1993. In my previous life, I was chief of detectives with Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. I worked narcotics for a long time, and I worked a lot of cases in Belmar when Drew was in the Detective Bureau. So either major crimes or whether it be narcotic cases, the prosecutor's office all the way through the chief of detectives, we had a very, very good working relationship. I became director of public safety in Neptune City for 9 years, and again, being a town bordering Belmar, almost bordering Belmar, I worked a lot of administrative cases with the chief and the Belmar Police Department. And my only question is, you know, in where I've come from, and I become administrator of Belmar in January, now you retire. I mean, is it me?
No, sir, it is not. But I can tell you, when we all started, you and me had a lot more hair.
Believe me, I had a lot more hair when I started Belmar too. So, but it was a privilege and an honor to work with you, Drew. You've been a friend, and you've been a fantastic police officer and an administrator and a person to work with. And I, again, we regret that you are retiring, but we wish you and your family all the best. Hopefully now you can use your boat and stay at Belmar for a little while, because you definitely are dedicated 24/7 to this town, its residents, its business owners, and the police officers. And the tribute that you see here, with all these police officers coming in to pay tribute to you, speaks for itself. You're going to be missed, and we wish you all the best in the world. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. We really do wish you all the best. With all the officers here, you think we can take a picture with?
I think that would be great.
Everybody up here?
Come on up, everybody,
Everybody wants
please.
to come up. We'll grab a quick picture.
All officers in the back. Squeeze in, Joe. How's that work? Anybody else? Good. Sure you don't want to stay for the meeting?
Okay, we're going to move into workshop. We had a lot of discussion last meeting about the Ninth Avenue project, and I'd like, and we asked Christine at the last meeting to come up with some type of changes or solution, and I'd like to bring her up here, along with Jerry, to let us know some suggestions to get through this.
So after, hearing the input from the residents and talking to all of you, and to the redeveloper, we decided that along 9th Avenue, where the project is adjacent to the residential area, it'll be 3 stories or a maximum of 36 feet. It'll also be set back. We're moving the setback from 30 feet to 40 feet along the property line. And then the building will step up to 4 stories along Main Street. I think this is a positive change to the plan and provides a better alternative than the underlying zoning. What we're recommending specifically is, and I'll just read it for you, it's any portion of a building which is both A, within 75 feet of a street frontage property line along 9th Avenue, and B, within 50 feet of a residential zone property boundary, shall not exceed 3 stories and 36 feet in height, measured to the roof deck of said portion of a building. Portions of the building which are more than 75 feet from a street frontage property line along 9th Avenue shall not be bound by the height restriction in the preceding sentence, but shall otherwise comply with the height standards herein in section 10 of the bulk requirements. So we're recommending that amendment be made to the redevelopment plan and ordinance as it would be adopted.
Okay. Did you look at the Seaport redevelopment, the CBD1, and this?
Yes.
And your recommendation is that this is the best course of action to go?
Yes. I think we talked about it in the past few meetings a bit, but if something was developed in this, on this property with the underlying zoning, it could go up to 45 feet and be 10 feet away from that residential property line. So this, pushes it back, has less height, it's just a better fit for the area than the underlying zoning or the Seaport redevelopment plan would be.
Okay. So it's your recommendation to go forward with this?
It is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Christine? All right, thank you. The other thing I have on workshop is we have a resolution for an emergency appropriation. And what it is what we're doing is we're trying to get to the end of the year and clean up some of this stuff. There was 2 lawsuits that happened way before us. The judge ruled that we have to pay the attorney's fees, and they come down to $219,000 for the attorney's fees. So we had to do it to get this done. We had to do an emergency appropriation of $219,000. As you see on there, we're way under the 3% that we're allowed to do that. The only issue is this, as our auditors tell us, that this will be on the 2020 line, it'll be a line item on our budget for 2020. So we want to get this cleaned up, finished, paid off, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing the emergency appropriation, if anybody has any questions on that. And the other thing that we have on the resolution calendar is the Newman redevelopment project, and if our attorney could just speak on that a little bit before we move forward.
Sure, Mayor. The Newman project was, it's a fait accompli. I think 2 or 3 years ago, the Mayor and Council, in conjunction with the Planning Board, determined that this area was an area in need of redevelopment, and they adopted ordinances to put it into the redevelopment area. This is a redevelopment agreement, which is standard after all of that is done. It's an agreement between the town and any redeveloper, indicating the rights and responsibilities of each. So it explains in detail what can get built there. Still has to go to the planning board. It has not gone to the planning board yet. So anyone within 200 feet will get the appropriate notice at that time. But this is a very standard thing to happen when redevelopment areas are placed into the redevelopment zone. That's it.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions on that? All right, moving on. Petitions, anybody in the audience have a petition for us?
second?
Second.
Councilwoman Lund? Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walsiger?
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Okay, report to council. Councilman Corbett.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Since last meeting, I attended the Belmar Business Partnership meeting. That was the final one of this year. There's not much to report. They are getting their calendar of events together for next year, as well as their budget, which we'll be seeing I guess, proposal for in the early part of next year. I also attended the Christmas tree lighting, which was well attended despite the weather. I think it was a great event. And then I also participated in youth government, where the children from the elementary school come over and they break them up into the different departments based on what they're interested in. Councilman Brennan and I took them on a tour of the building, those that were interested in the council part of things. So we did that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay, but I think they had a mock trial. I saw that on Facebook. That looked pretty interesting. But other than that, I don't have anything else. I do want to wish everybody a happy and safe holiday, and see you in the new year. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. I have a note to turn on the mic. Okay. Sorry, I have missed last meeting. I've been ill, feeling better. So I've missed, but we haven't had, my committees haven't met and aren't going to meet until January anyway. If you've noticed, the shelter down in Cleary Park is going up. You'll see the pillars are there. It's on its way. That's being done. Excuse me. I think I'll let that go for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Harbor Commission had a meeting last Tuesday night. We are going to recommend to Mayor and Council that we raise our fuel prices. We have plenty of room to move and still be the cheapest around. We're really a great deal. We don't need to be that good of a deal. We're also going to recommend that we look into monthly licenses in the fall. Other marinas do that too, monthly fees for keeping a boat for October, November, December. That's when stripers are running, and it's a chance to make some more money. One of the things about our marina is because the borough owns it, all the revenue, all the profit goes straight into our general fund and helps keep taxes lower for our homeowners and businesses. Let's see, I attended I'm pretty sure it's the first ever, I don't remember it ever happened before, the Borough Employee Holiday Party. I want to congratulate the mayor on organizing that. It was a really nice thing to do for all our, not just our employees and their spouses and significant others, but also members of different boards were invited. Really, it seemed like the whole borough was there. It was really nice event. And the Christmas tree lighting was lovely. It was really nice to see the kids. For me personally, a lot of you know, I was a music teacher there and I just retired last June. It was my first chance ever to be involved in youth government because although I've known that the event happened, I was never actually able to go to the activities because I was working and now I'm retired. So I can tell you this, I know the kids got pizza, so they thought the day was a tremendous success. I'm sure they were very happy. And that's it. I also want to wish everybody the best of holidays. Oh, I didn't know that. All right, so I've just been informed that our very own Jade Glab made it through the first round of Miss America. Nice. Thursday night of the finals. I don't know what channel it's on. We'll find it out. All right, thank you. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to mention Jade Glad myself, but yeah, Thursday night, with Belmar might have its own Miss America, which would be amazing. So, but we wish her all the best. Keep our fingers crossed. I want to thank Mike Campbell, Chief Heisman, and the volunteer fire department for the Christmas tree lighting, Fire department came down, gave all the kids a ride in a fire truck. Mike Campbell did a great job setting everything up. Police department did a great job keeping everybody safe, and except for the weather, it was a really nice event. So, the other thing that I was also at youth government, and it's so nice to see the kids from the Belmar Elementary School that have been studying for different areas of the government, and it's nice to see that they want to get involved and come over here and talk to all of us about different aspects of the government and how Belmar runs. So, a really nice day, a really nice event. They'll be up here, I guess, in a couple of weeks to have a mock in January or February. So, I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays, and be safe. So, and that's all I have. April, public session on.
Anyone from the public has a comment or question on a resolution listed on the agenda, please step forward, state your name and address.
Yes, Mr. Graham. Right hand on the mic.
Eugene Creamer, 4th Avenue. And Merry Christmas, if I don't see you before Christmas. This resolution, 2019-28, and that's the judgments against the borough?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that to pay the 7th Avenue attorneys?
I didn't get it.
Pay the 7th Avenue attorneys?
I don't think 7th Avenue attorneys are.
Yes, if that's the one you require, or questioning, then they have their office on 7th Avenue, yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna take care of that, this way that's, cleans that up.
Very good.
And it should be finished, hopefully.
Well, I just, it's nice to know that they're nearby.
You don't have to take the check too far.
Okay, a comment on Resolution 2019-222. This is a redevelopment agreement, I believe it's referred to as Newman Enterprises.
Yes.
Okay. On page number 40, I saw Colleen Conley's signature placed there. You may want to remove that.
We already did.
Oh, okay.
I was
Yes.
admonished for not catching that the first time, but thank you very much for bringing it up.
Page number 27, section 8.11, 811, affordable housing obligation. I think it says a single 1.5% contribution made to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund here in town. But the town just passed and adopted, this chapter 43, which is affordable housing. And I looked at the property, really, block 117, lot 3, 4, and 5. It's zoned single-family residential, R75. And according to current zoning, the developer would be entitled to construct 2 dwelling units. That's current zoning, 2 dwelling units. Actually, there's 3 lots there, but one is not buildable. It's landlocked. And even at that, it's a substandard size lot. Anyhow, the developer would be entitled to build 2 residential units. But the redevelopment agreement, the way I read it, is for 10 residential units.
Just before we were here, it was placed in the Seaport redevelopment zone, and all that has been approved. The only thing that we negotiated on was in the agreement about changing the pilot So, but everything else, what has already been approved. So it was put in a safe border redevelopment, it's been through planning.
2016.
And the only thing is that we've changed all the language. There's no more pilot, so, and we negotiated that with them.
Yeah, okay, but that doesn't change the affordable, there's nothing in the borough's affordable housing ordinance that lets redevelopers not pay their fair share, okay? And the way I've calculated it out, it's 1.5% for the first 2 units and 3% for the additional, each of the additional 8 units, according to the borough's ordinance.
Mr. Kramer, I didn't bring the ordinance with me.
I have a copy right here, sir.
Okay, cool. So, but this is, well, okay, you can give it to me if you wish.
Sure. This is residential development. I was going to say, I did not find any exclusion in there for redevelopment projects. And that's one of the reasons I wanted the word may change to shall, if you remember.
I have a feeling we talked about this a few months ago, didn't we?
Yes.
And didn't we change it?
Oh, yes, we did.
I think we changed it, right?
That's correct. I guess what I'm saying is that there is no exclusion there for redevelopment projects from a redeveloper paying their obligation in accordance with
My recollection is, boy, I'm not exactly sure, I think you came a few months ago and wanted it to say shall,
Correct.
and I think the mayor and council left it at may.
No.
Left it May, because we asked
You
why
left it
was
as
the
may.
word May.
Yeah, I thought so too.
No, it's right in front of you.
Okay. Well, I don't know what this says, I do know
It's
that.
right on the borough's website, pending codification. And that's right there, and it says shall. You did change it, and I thank you.
No, I don't think we I think we left it as
We looked
may.
into why, my question was, why was it recommended that we use that word instead of the word shall? And the feedback we got was that you need that kind of flexibility for any kind of unforeseen circumstances. So we stuck with the recommended language of may.
Well,
I'm sorry that this is what it says,
That's
maybe.
there, but I remember what we did.
My recollection was, and I'd have to check with April tomorrow, that we,
you can check it right now. I mean, words spoken fly through the air, words written are always there. That is as adopted, right there in front of you. I do not mess with it, okay? And according to the ordinance, anything that would require a D variance would require.
well, this doesn't require D-variance, this
Yes,
project.
it does, absolutely.
No, it doesn't, sir, because it's being constructed in accordance with the requirements of the redevelopment zone. Notwithstanding the zoning ordinance, the redevelopment ordinance, which was adopted in 2016, is an overlay of the normal zoning ordinance.
Now, hold on a second. Let's just get back to the Ninth Avenue thing. Everybody, excuse me, different subject, but reference to the existing zoning, okay? There's, what you're saying then is that this does not apply to a redevelopment project?
Now, you said it would require a D-variance, and I said, this project will not require a D-variance because it is being planned pursuant to an ordinance that was adopted in 2016. That's what I said.
It's still zoned residential.
Sir, the redevelopment law, when you adopt the redevelopment ordinance, as they did in 2016, it was determined to be an area in need of redevelopment, and it was determined to be that this should be part of the Seaport redevelopment zone. That's what we call an overlay zone over the regular zoning ordinance. So that takes precedent over the zoning ordinance that you mentioned earlier?
No, it doesn't. We have many properties here in town that are in redevelopment areas that are being upgraded and built in accordance with the current zoning. In other words, the only reason that there's a change in zoning is because of a redevelopment agreement. But as far as the affordable housing obligation is concerned, that's based upon the zoning of the property. And both of these properties are R75 residential.
Mr. Kramer, I respectfully disagree with you. This is a redevelopment zone, and therefore the redevelopment zone, which is the Seaport redevelopment zone, takes precedent over the regular zoning ordinance, which you indicate is an R75 zone. By the way, the issue about 3% is for D variances per this ordinance. There's no D variance as part of this plan.
There would be a D variance.
We're starting to chase our tail here. There is
Well,
no D
that
variance.
may very well be the case, but I think what you're saying is that any redeveloper can come in here and build without making any payment to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
No, this applicant is going to pay 1.5% of the assessed value of each of the 10 units.
But he should pay 1.5% on the first 2 units, which he would ordinarily be allowed. He's increasing the density 5 times as to what would normally be allowed there.
The proposal for 10 units is in accordance with the requirements of the Seaport redevelopment zone. Therefore, no D or...
The Seaport redevelopment is not a zone. It's an area, and it's a plan.
It's been incorporated into the Seaport redevelopment area. And therefore, the 10 units which are being proposed here, which was effectively approved a few years ago, won't require a use or a D variance. And therefore, what you indicated earlier doesn't apply, because what you just quoted talks about D variances. That's not what we're talking about.
If that be the case, then every redeveloper is going to come in here. And then, as far as affordable housing obligation is concerned, the residential property owners in town are going to carry their water.
I don't know. This redeveloper is paying in accordance with the ordinances. I don't know what else to say to you. That's what
With what ordinance?
the ordinance which requires 1.5% on residential use.
That's it right there.
That is applicable, and it's may, if it requires a use variance. This doesn't require 10 units per this ordinance that was adopted in 2016, will not require a use variance.
Well, I'm very disappointed in this.
Well, it was adopted in 2016, and this council is stuck with it. Just like we're stuck with paying the attorney's fees that were assessed against the town 2 or 3 years ago.
Thank you.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes, Tran.
Mr. Kramer?
Katrina Clapsis, B Street.
Hi, Tran.
Merry Christmas, God bless you all. Question about this project. In the paperwork, it says 10 units, and it does use the word pilot in
No, we
description.
took all that out. We
No,
saw that it
that
was in
was a
there, that's
mistake.
all taken out.
Okay, that's all. Okay, so is it possible for you guys to give us like a little rundown on what it's gonna say instead? Because what I read was the original portion, and it said pilot, 10 years, percentages, $100,000 on each unit. Is it possible that you could share that with us?
The assessment right now on this property, the land and the improvements, is $1,014,000. That's what it's assessed at and taxed at.
Right,
The agreement says that will continue, well, it says $1 million. It says $100,000 for each of the units
right.
until they're built. So in the meantime, they will continue to pay taxes on an assessment of $1 million. But that's regular taxes. A pilot agreement would mean that 95% goes to the town, 5% goes to the county, none goes to the Board of Health or the Board of Education. These are going to be regular taxes, and they're going to be divided the regular way. So that the Board of Ed will get its cut, Board of, et cetera. So, and then as the buildings go up, then they get taxed.
Okay, so then the paperwork that I read was the old paperwork, and that has since been changed?
We changed it.
Okay.
As soon as they saw it, we changed it.
All right, and is that on the website, is that going to be on the website, is it on the
That's the
website?
page.
Do you have copies of it?
Enjoy yours. This is my own copy, but I'll get a copy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It is on the website now, too.
It
And we
is?
also changed the signature page to Mr. Curry.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Oh,
Elaine Giordano, 605 9th Avenue. So could you clarify, please, what you stated earlier about the ordinance and what the change is that the developer has agreed to, or you guys?
is this on the Newman project?
Yes, or is that a wrong timing?
Wrong time. We gotta wait till we'll have questions on the ordinance on
Thank you.
that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, April?
Have a motion to close the public session.
Make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the resolutions as listed on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion. Second.
Councilman Juan? Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Walsifer?
Yes.
Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
And next, can I have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-230?
Before we do that, I'm going to recuse myself as a performing and professional musician. I sometimes do business with licensed businesses in town, and to avoid any hint of impropriety, I recuse myself from all ABC actions. But I would like to say thank you to the Terranova family. Really appreciate it. Everything they've done to keep Jack's 80-plus years a part of our community. Good luck to them. Jack's will be missed.
Can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Councilman Juan? Mayor Walsifer?
Yes, I also echo what Council President Brennan said. They've been a real life family in town, and I hate to see them go, but yes.
And Councilman Carvelli?
Yes.
Next, we have the public hearing and second reading of ordinance 2019-35. This is an ordinance establishing a redevelopment plan. If anyone from the public would like to speak on this ordinance, please step forward, state your name and address.
Hello, Brett Lomas, 609 9th Ave. I've also been very sick, so excuse my voice and things like that. First I'd like to thank you for reducing the height in that one section. And I feel like we are moving in the right direction. You know, it's been expressed that the council feels like they're between a rock and a hard place because it seems like they believe that the developer has all the power to have a hand in writing the redevelopment plan, the power to ignore it if they don't like, and the power to build the giant building that they originally proposed under CBD1. But in reading the state redevelopment statutes, the reality is that number one, only the council has the power to adopt a redevelopment plan. It's not a collaboration between the redeveloper and the town, and the redeveloper doesn't need to sign off. Number two, a redevelopment plan must be adopted before any
It doesn't say everything you just said.
Yes,
Okay. All right. What section are you reading?
I believe it is 40A, chapter 12A, and then it's a bunch of sections. I don't have the sections numbers with me, but I can look that up if you like. It also says that a redevelopment plan must be adopted before any redevelopment begins. And as you said before, that once a plan is adopted, it acts as, it supersedes zoning. So no, if a redevelopment plan is approved, the developer cannot ignore it. So the developer, if the plan that you approve says it needs to be 3 stories or less dense, the developer can't ignore it. And finally, number 4, which is the really interesting one, it says that upon the adoption, which means after the adoption of a redevelopment plan by council, can a town then arrange with redevelopers for planning purposes? So basically the plan comes first, and then arrangements with the developer can be made, not the other way around. And I would assume that these provisions are in the law so that this situation doesn't happen, so that municipalities can decide what is best for them with consensus of community and not be strong-armed by developers. And I thought maybe I was reading these wrong, as you mentioned, but another township in New Jersey published a document describing the area in need of redevelopment process that agrees and states the same thing. There's been a lot of talk about, along the way, the past 3 or 4 meetings, there's been a lot of talk about spot zoning. I had an idea of what that was, but I looked it up exactly to see what it was. Turns out that a New Jersey municipality engages in spot zoning when it uses the zoning power to benefit particular private interests rather than the collective interests of the community, which to me sounds a little on the nose. We've got a whole community, including the planning board, saying that this draft redevelopment plan doesn't fit with the master plan and is not in the interest of the community. Now, the elephant in the room is CBD1. We've heard how terrible it is, so I looked into it. And what I realized as I was looking into it was that the proposed building wouldn't be able to be built under CBD1. It would need variances. And as we just learned from Mr. Kramer speaking, that once the plan is adopted, they no longer need to get variances. As far as I can tell, at a minimum, they need a parking variance, a height variance, and I believe a use variance. And the idea is that parking limits density. And the fact that this doesn't have enough parking means that it's too dense for the site. The proposed plan also does not include a buffer, which would be required. And by the way, a parking lot is not a buffer. In Belmar, buffers are defined as natural and vegetative. In addition, Belmar defines a multifamily development as one with more than 3 units. This one has 30, maybe might be, I don't know if that's lowered from the changes that were made. But since it meets the definition of a multifamily development, there's a bunch of other requirements, including that 30% of the developable area must be set aside as open space, and a 25-foot buffer strip abutting a residential property line. Again, not parking, natural and vegetative. And there's others. The point is that if you approve the ordinance, you take the burden of proof off the developer, and that's what this is all about. That you're rezoning the property so they don't need to ask for variances. Variants are denied when the developer can't prove hardship. Approving this ordinance would shift the burden from them having to prove hardship in zoning to us appealing the ordinance in court. Make them either build within the law or attempt to get variances. Don't grant all their wishes tonight. They weren't even supposed to be involved in the process, yet it seems like they've dictated it the whole way. If developers were able to build to this density, these parking requirements and setbacks, they would have done that already on 5th and 8th. Did those developers build buildings that were only 3 stories with 100-foot setbacks out of the goodness of their hearts? I don't think so. I don't think those developers are in some way nicer than this developer. I've heard that, I've been told by many people that this developer is a good guy. And basically, a developer will build what they're permitted to build. They take what, as a town, we're willing to give, and they make a profit with what we're willing to give, which is fine. That's what's supposed to happen. And I don't think that this developer is a bad guy. He's just taking what we're willing to give and making the most of it, right? That's what his job is. The other developers weren't nicer people on 5th and 8th, right? For some reason, we're just giving this developer more than we gave them, and I don't know why. Don't give special treatment to this project. Don't approve special rules written by the developer. Do it by the book with no variances. At one of the other meetings, I said that the 30-foot setback looked really good at first. But then I realized how small it actually was. Now there's more tweaks and adjustments to the plan. And the reason that all these adjustments look so great at first is because the original proposal by the mayor's own admission was so unreasonable and unacceptable, but it was bad. And that's why these adjustments look good. And compared to that, anything would look pretty good, and that's the game. Show something truly unreasonable, and they'll settle for anything. We don't have to settle for just anything. I was outside for a couple minutes the other day, and had 2 separate people that represented developers talk to me about other ideas for the site, ideas that were less dense and not 4 stories. I truly believe that 4 stories is out of place there. I also believe that 30 apartments is too many for that lot. It's out of line with previous developments and the existing character of the neighborhood. The project's lot can't support the proposed plan. Every other developer in this town has managed to build reasonable buildings in line with the master plan and the existing neighborhood, which have contributed positively to our community, and this project, I hope, will be no different. There's a relevant court case involving a town called Euclid, which is I'm a geometry teacher. He's the father of geometry, so that's a good name for a town. But in that case, it was found that maintaining the character of a neighborhood is a valid primary purpose of zoning regulations. The people of this town elected you guys for a change from the increased development and rateables at all costs mentality. Belmar's a small community, and development plans like this are supposed to be created with consensus of the community. The only community consensus here is that we don't want you to greenlight this. I think the petition is closing in now on 300 signatures. Please don't ignore the residents. Citizens of this town will not benefit from this. They're looking to you to stop it. You aren't powerless to stop it. You can vote no. Thank you.
Now's the time.
Yes.
Do I restate my name? Elaine Giordano, 605 9th Avenue. And Brett, I can't thank you enough. You're our elected officials. That's stuff you find on the internet. I came this evening because I fully expect to lose. Sorry, but I did. I said to my husband, I'm going to dress up and come here and bear witness to what I think is wrong. On so many levels, wrong. We are heading in the wrong direction with this. It's not that we don't want to see nice things happen, quality things happen to properties. And we know, based on our tax increases, that we're in need of revenue. We are in need of revenue. Please don't do it on the backs of citizens in this way, though. Please. Surely you can do some further looking and searching as to what your rights are. And I know that you are in receipt of 2 CoStar articles that I sent to all of you. I sent it to Councilwoman 1 and Councilwoman Carvelli and asked them to pass them on. So there's a serious discrepancy here with this Lot 95. Something happened. Somehow it got left out of the redevelopment plan, but it was there in 2008. Kenny Pringle said so, CoStar article. And it was there in 2017 when then Mayor Doherty said, oops, it's there. It's a part of the Seaport redevelopment plan. And you're trying to convince us that CBD 1 special plan is better than the Seaport. Really, folks, you're not getting shafted as much here. So just sit back, relax, and take this plan. The fact of the matter is, what Brett is saying, it's wrong democratically to do what is being done here, which is to be having dealings with a developer. One resident in the community is having the opportunity to deal with the planner, the council, private conversations, comes very well, with people to speak on his behalf. That's all fine and good. But what is supposed to happen in terms of what should be happening first and second and third? You guys are in control. And I said this to the planning board, and I'm saying it again to you. And this is the last hurrah, because no doubt money talks. But I am hoping that this town is better than that. Thank you.
I worked on helping 4 out of the 5 people on council sit up here on the days. We heard you were going to bring redevelopment under control. If you allow this project to go through, what's happening to the rest of Main Street from 9th to 10th? Are we going to have 4-story buildings on all those sites just to accommodate one investor who isn't living by the desire of the people in our community, I'm gonna put it on you, but if that's where we're going, I don't know why all of us voted for you, because that's not what we expected from you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Kramer?
Eugene Creamer, Fourth Avenue. Like a couple of others, I did take a close look at the CBD1 zoning. And actually, yes, a developer could go up 4 stories and could come build as close as 10 feet to Brett's property. However, I don't think that would really happen. Let me say that. The thing that CBD1 does allow residential, but only on the 2nd floor of the building. If you believe that the developer is going to build some sort of development above the 2nd floor and not be residential, I think you're fooling yourself. All the money is in residential. If you just kept the existing zoning, I think it's a hollow threat.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Rose DeGania, 201 9th Avenue. When someone mentioned about the election, the original election, and reducing the density of new buildings, I spoke to Mrs. Wan and Mr. McCracken outside when they were originally running for office there, and I was so excited that they were against this dense redevelopment, or overdevelopment as I call it. Again, I'm going to ask the council, we need to relook at the rezoning, the Seaport redevelopment plans. It's not working anymore for us. We need to look at that and take into consideration the citizens all over. Because an apartment building can go down and somebody, no matter where it is, they can build 4 stories in the middle of an area. So people that say, oh, it's not my neighborhood right now, it could be their neighborhood. So I'm really concerned about all of the development in Belmar. And I think we need to look at it again. And I respectfully request that we take a look at all of the redevelopment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Martha Maselko, 102 North Boulevard. I would just like to support the previous speakers. I think they've articulated very well the need to be listened and heard, and I would ask that you do that. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
Hey guys, Paul Marino, 112 9th Avenue, Belmar. Well, we're talking about what we want, what we don't want, but does anyone have an idea that would come where we can meet in the middle? Do you ever talk to, is the builder here, or the owner? I just had an idea. If there are 2 properties there, how about he builds what he wants on one property, the condos, and then on the other property, you build 2 or 3 custom homes? That would look really good. I mean, it's at least a suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I want to remind the mayor and council that if you want to go forward with the ordinance and change whatever you want to do with it, keep in mind that the proposed ordinance was not voted in favor by the planning board. It was voted that it was not in conformity with the master plan. You have every right to counteract planning board saw, certainly.
Well, can we take the vote on what the recommendation were?
Absolutely, absolutely. You can adopt the ordinance with that recommendation,
With the
absolutely.
recommendation of our planner,
Yes, sir.
the borough's planner.
Yes.
So,
Oh,
Jerry, I mean, a lot of things were just said. You can do this, you can't do that, CBD one, where do we stand on all of that stuff? Is what you're hearing, is there any credence to that? Any of those things? For example, Brett said, oh, you need a natural buffer and this, that, and the other thing with CBD one. Is your reading of the ordinance that way?
I'm not, I don't know. I wasn't asked to review the CDB one ordinance tonight,
Okay.
so I don't know what exactly it says in terms of those particulars.
Mhm.
We do know that it allows a 40-foot high building, or a 4-story building, 10 feet from the property line. But I can look through the rest of it. Some of what you just discussed, and some of what Mr. Loomis talked about, are the type of things get addressed at the planning board, when it has to come in for site plan approval. Maybe the planning board wants more buffer. Those kind of things come up. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to get a feel for what people are saying and, voicing their opinions here and their concerns and what they're reading. And what's been communicated to me is that what's been shown that can be built in CBD1 is something that can be built in CBD1, whereas people are coming up here and saying, no, that can't be built.
Well, I don't know that that's correct,
Right.
but in any event, I think it's clear that in a CDB1 zone, they could build a 4-story building 10 feet from the property line. I think everybody agrees that that could be done. This is not proposing that. In fact, based upon the recommendations of the town planner, there'll be less height constructed than what was talked about the last meeting, and almost talked about at the planning.
And greater setback.
So, that's best I can tell you.
Thank you.
plus it still has
But the niceties, if you will.
yeah, it still has to go to 2 more boards. It has to go to the technical design review committee, plus it has to go back to the planning board and site approval and all that. There's a
Right, this is only just putting those, approving
much
the,
stuff.
This is my question too. I mean, it's not, if it's approved tonight, it's not like they're gonna start building it tomorrow. There's still several steps of review in
They
the
have to go to
process.
the planning board, for sure, for site plan approval. Everyone within 200 feet gets notice of the hearing.
But they would not have to get any variances, right? I think what Mr. Kramer was saying a minute ago was that if, yes, technically they could build a 4-story building 10 feet from the house, but they couldn't do that and meet all the other things, and meet all the other requirements at the same time, right? They wouldn't be able to meet the parking requirements doing that. They wouldn't be able to meet lots of other requirements doing that. So technically, it would be allowed, but it would never happen because they wouldn't be able to meet the other requirements.
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I'm not arguing with anybody. The planning board has the right to give variances if they come in under the CDB1 zone. So, I hope
and
that...
the fact that, sorry.
Now, on a site plan application, assuming for the sake of the discussion that this ordinance goes through today, the niceties still get addressed by the planning board, the buffer issues, other types of things that were discussed tonight.
And we have more input into this process.
Oh, sure.
on
And the public will have an opportunity to address it for the planning board at that public hearing.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, April?
I have a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then, do we want a motion to adopt the ordinance? Who would like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
And do we have a second?
Sorry.
Okay. Councilwoman Wong? I'll start the other end. You have to say one.
Now, Councilwoman, you need to indicate,
Why?
if you're voting yes, why you are counteracting the planning board decision.
I'm just catching my breath,
I understand,
Okay,
I understand.
that's all right. I'm sorry, everybody. My concerns at the planning board with parking and the height. That's been taken care of. We've now got 40 feet instead of 30 feet in the back of buildings coming down. And this is why I'm going to approve it, because they heard what the people wanted and it was done. And it's still going to be developed. I mean, I'm not against development in town. We need it. But this is a development that was heard. You were heard. And that's why I'm going to vote yes.
Councilman Brennan?
All right, so democracy is really messy, right? I tell you what, I've been on the council 5 years and I've seen a few redevelopment projects go through. And this is the first time I've seen this kind of public input, this kind of give and take, and I want to congratulate, Mayor Walsper's done a great job trying to hear what people say, what the neighbors are concerned about. I think the developer has really gone out of his way to try to hear that. My concerns also, primarily, were the parking. Now, I'm assuming the fact that we're taking most of the top floor off, the number of units is going down. Is that correct? Am I correct to assume that?
No, it's still gonna be, my understanding is it's still 30 units.
So the parking requirements are the same?
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. Hey, this is a really difficult decision. I really want to try to be fair to everybody. And the problem is, in a democracy, what you don't get is what you want. You get consensus. You have to work out what most people can live with so that we can all move forward together. But I still do, and that being said, with the number of units and the parking, that was my original concern, and it hasn't been addressed, so I'm going to have to vote no. I think the developer has really gone out of his way to listen to the neighbors and try to address their concerns, and he has a right to build something there. But you got to make sure you have enough parking. We all know that parking is the big thing in town, and there's no way that you can put up something that's not going to have enough parking.
With the recommendations from our planner and our engineers, I'll vote yes. So we'll make those changes to our planner and engineer, those recommendations, as long as they're attached. I vote yes.
So I believe that everybody's concerns have been heard. I believe that we've looked at all the zones that are out there, the underlying CBD1 zone, Seaport redevelopment, and I believe that this zoning is a compromise that the developer and the planner have taken into account all the concerns of the residents in the area. I do believe that this is a good project for Main Street. And what we're approving here tonight is different than what was originally presented to the planning board, which shot down that it goes with the master plan. So taking all of that into consideration, I'm voting yes.
All right, public session. Anybody have anything for council public session? All right, seeing none, April?
Can I have a motion to close the public?
Oh, yes, Mark.
Public session on any subject?
Yes.
Hi, Mark Kirschenbaum, West Belmar. It's been a while since I've been here. I had a stroke in January, had a stroke in February. Took me a while to learn to walk again, a few other things. I got a few things I want to bring up. Is anybody on that board allowed to call someone at home and threaten them on what's going to happen to them if they show up and make public comments at a meeting, or what not is going to happen to them?
Is anybody allowed?
There's a law against that.
I don't understand what your point is. I don't think anybody on this board has ever done that.
Do you know of anybody on this board
You're standing at
that
the
me and you
microphone.
have a talk in January about why I wasn't allowed to come to a meeting,
In January of this year,
2019?
but I'm the one that would allow you to a meeting. If you didn't say you couldn't come to a meeting.
No, but did someone else tell me I wasn't allowed at a meeting?
It doesn't matter what anybody else says. I say you can come to a meeting. I mean, I told you that.
You don't understand what I'm saying.
This is a public meeting. This is a public forum. Anybody can come to this meeting. I wouldn't stop.
I was told when you guys first got elected, because I took on the revaluation of the town, which, do you admit that was a bad revaluation?
Well, I heard your side and I heard the borough side, but the problem was is that we had different tax assessors and everything, so
Your tax assessor lied in a public meeting.
that was the old tax assessor. He's not here anymore.
Yeah, okay, well, I met a bunch of new ones, they ain't much in the telling the truth department. The reason why I'm here is after I got a phone call for 40 minutes, I had a stroke. That phone call was from my brother, who said he's embarrassed that I talk in meetings. So I got a few questions of this board. Why is it this past summer and last summer, he's had a free boat slip in Belmar Marina that's not in his contract?
No, he hasn't. He paid this year.
He paid who?
He paid the borough of Belmar.
Did he pay last year?
I have no idea.
Because I
wasn't here last
understand,
year.
yeah,
I know this year everybody paid.
I understand last year was Drew Heisman's slip, Mike Campbell's slip, and this year was Drew Heisman's.
Mark, your brother was not employed here last year, so I don't know what happened.
Why is Bobby Ferguson working for the town?
Every employee that works here, if they have a boat in the marina, pays.
The same amount as everybody else, or are there special favors?
No, it's everybody else.
Okay. Why is Bobby Ferguson working as a business administrator volunteer for $1 a year, part-time? Why did you bring him on board?
He does a lot of research for us.
Yeah?
And he wanted to volunteer his time, but by law, we have to pay him $1 a year. And I'm grateful for him because he does a lot of research for us.
Okay. Outside of this meeting, are you allowed to speak to me?
Yes, absolutely.
Didn't my brother tell you he doesn't want you to talk to me?
Never.
Never?
He's not gonna tell me who I can talk to and who I can't. Come on, Mark, where are we going with this?
October 6th, didn't me you have a conversation? At Taylor Pavilion? At 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
George Comatose' son's,
Eagle Scout.
Right.
Yeah,
and I told you it wasn't the time or place to talk about the taxes. That's what I told you. And
yeah.
I told you anytime they wanted to call me, you want to sit down and talk.
He also
we'll
calls
talk about
me
it.
names, curses at me. I saw him.
Who, me?
No, him. You tell me that he calls me names in Borough Hall.
I'm sorry, is he calling you names in doing his job, or as brothers?
And doing his job.
Is that, okay?
We haven't really had much of a conversation in years. All of a sudden, he calls me up for 40 minutes on the phone and tells me what I can and cannot do.
This sounds like a family.
No, it's not a family. And there's a law. A borough administrator, and he told me I'm the boss of Belmar. Okay? Now, if you don't think I can prove any of this,
I'm not stopping you from coming to these meetings. I have never told you that. If you're talking as brothers, I can't control that. But if you have a complaint against the business administrator, put it in writing and send it to us. I
okay.
mean, I don't know what the 40-minute conversation was all about, so if you have a problem with that, put it in writing and send it over to me, and we'll go through the proper channels.
And you never told me October 6th that he calls me names in Borough Hall.
Never. I would never say
A
that.
piece of shit, effing scumbag.
I told you that?
Okay.
Yes.
No, That's enough. That's enough.
Okay, hold on. I had a tape recorder on. Everything you said to me is wired,
Okay, good.
okay? Took me a long time to come back.
You're not gonna use this language in this room.
It's the language that was used to me, and
I'm gonna stop you
didn't
right
say
there, because this language in this setting, you got something, you have something, put it in writing, we'll take a look at it, I'll send it through the proper channels to be investigated. So, I'm cutting you off right there. You put anything that you have to say in writing and send it over to us, and we will send it to the police department for investigation. That's it.
and your police department is gonna investigate.
That's it, Mark. You're done right there. Either we're gonna shut the microphone off.
Okay,
We're done.
go ahead.
Okay. Anyone else? All right.
A motion to close the public session and adjourn the meeting.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Everybody have a nice holiday. Thank you for coming out tonight.